2.2 is about drawing what's called a histogram. It's basically a picture of your distribution. So we're going to draw a histogram for each of the examples we just did today. The description there says, it's a graph with bars of equal width drawn adjacent to each other. The horizontal scale represents the classes, and the heights of the bars represent the frequencies. Sounds all scary to me. So I'm going to do the one for example B first. Example B is the one we just finished. There's two of them down here, A and B. I'm going to do the one for this, but we just finished talking about this one. Then I'll go back to the one we did earlier before the break. So I want to make a histogram. I have a horizontal axis and a vertical axis, like your X's and your Y's from algebra. On the horizontal, it's going to represent my classes. The most common numbers to put on there are the boundaries. So I'm going to list, I'm going to maybe make this a little bit longer so I can squeeze them all in here. I'm going to list all of my boundaries on that axis, starting with negative 0.5. So I'm going to put negative 0.5 here. The next one is 1.5. I forgot which one of my boundaries now. Listing all my boundaries, 3.5, 5.5. How far do I have to go? 11.5? Yes. Notice that these should be, roughly, my graph is not, they should be all about the same distance. This one's a little bit fatter, but they should be the same width. Use the power of my eraser to make them a little bit more accurate here. So each of these classes that are separated by these boundaries should all be the same width. What is that width? 2. That's the class width. From here to here is 2. From here to here is 2, right? However wide you make them when you draw them is up to you, but they should all be evenly spaced or close enough if you're freehanding it like me. So then I want to just mark the frequencies. My frequencies go from 1 up to 22. So I am going to mark this scale so it at least goes up to 22 because I have to fit that on my y-axis. So maybe I'll count by 5 and go up to 20, go up to 20 maybe. Like here's 5. Again, evenly spaced. 10. My spaces keep getting smaller as I go. 15, 20, something like that. Those should be evenly spaced. And I just want to make a bar that goes up to the height for each class. So this first class goes up to 2. 2 is roughly right here. So I'm going to go up to 2, over, and down. Where this number right here is 2. It matches up with this 2 right here if they were marked. You can count by ones if you want. It just gets really smushed together if I try to mark them all for you. It's hard to read. Everyone okay? I just went for this class. If you're between these two numbers, there's 2 in that category. Between those two numbers, there's 2 in that category, in that class. The next one, though, had a 22. So it's going to have a much taller bar here. 22 is way up there. Past my 20, about there. I'm eyeballing it. Sorry if you can't read this exactly. You don't have to put the numbers on top. A lot of times you'll see them written on top if it's hard to read over to your scale. Other times there'll be a nice perfect number line and you can just look over and see that it's a 22 by looking at the graph. 22 in the next class? We'll put 11 in the next one. 11, roughly here. Everyone see what I'm doing there? And then I have 3. And then I have 2 ones. So my graph, I'm going to color those in so you can see them. This is called a histogram. Questions on how I just created that? Mark your boundaries, find the heights based on your frequencies, Draw some little straight lines. Important. Equal width, so you have to count evenly spaced. What if I had a class that was like a 0? What if nobody said anything between 6 and 7? It was a 0. What would I have done?
Skip the bar.
Yeah, just skip that one. If there was nothing in here between 6 and 7, I just would have had no bar right there. It just would have been like a flat line. You just wouldn't see it. The bar would just be empty. It's okay. Skip that one. But you have to at least keep a space for every possibility in between there. So it has to have everything with equal width. And the other thing is that they are drawn adjacent to each other. They have to touch. It makes it a histogram because they're touching. If I had tried to draw it with my class limits, 0 to 1, 2 to 3, they wouldn't have touched. Let me do a little rough, quick sketch of what I mean. If I had marked my number line, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so forth, 0 to 1 would have gone, up here. And 2 to 3 would have been up here. There's this weird space between there. See what happens? That's why we have to mark it with the boundaries. It's like, what happens? Why is there a weird space? It has to be touching. This would not be okay. If you mark with your boundaries, that's the easiest way to do it. We don't like to mark with class limits because you can't tell if the 1 is on this bar or that bar. If you mark the branch at 1, which side are you on? Your problem. Okay? The horizontal scale can be marked using boundaries or midpoints. Sometimes, instead of listing the boundaries like I did there, they will label just the midpoints. They'll label these numbers. Everything would look the same, but instead of listing the edges, they would just put what's in the middle here. They'd put 0.5, 2.5, 4.5, so forth, and label those. You'd still be able to tell the width and figure out everything else. More common is to use the boundaries. So that's my histogram that goes with the data we just came up with. Is it normal? Is it normal?
Yeah.
Starts low, gets high in the middle, and goes back down?
No.
Yeah. I heard yes, I heard no. Is the middle the highest, guys?
No.
Definitely not, right? It's much higher over here. We call this skewed. It's skewed because we got all this higher part over here, and then it kind of gets stretched out over there. It's not very normal, it's skewed.
What's the definition of skewed?
Skewed kind of like it leans. It leans one way, or it's not really leaning, but it leans one way or the other. If you were to draw a bell shape over it in this example, it would look something like this. Rough sketch. So it's not highest in the middle, it's skewed, it has this little part that stretches over here to the side. If you have skewed left and skewed right, where maybe you have something that does this, right? Skewed, yeah. The book will explain it in more detail. It's mine where it's leaning over. It's not very normal though. Okay, and how to make a histogram.